Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of No Splinters Sports Podcast. This one's a boxing special. I think the word on everyone's lips at the moment seems to be all about Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury in 2021. I'm joined by Harv and Adam, who was obviously with us for the football podcast this week. He's another big boxing fan like myself. Harv will probably sit as a passenger on this one, pretend he knows what he's on about, and talk about Tyson Fury as if he's some sort of god. But yeah. I'll just briefly touch upon this weekend. Obviously, Anthony Joshua against Kubrat Pulev. It got a bit spicy in the weigh-in, and that was good to see. And I think Anthony Joshua has gone from sort of being and sort of looked upon as some sort of god and a mythical figure when he came through and sort of knocked out Charles Martin and all those sort of challengers in Brazil and Molina and stuff. And everyone used to look at him before he fought the big fights as some sort of amazing, untouchable god. And since then, he seems to be, I think, underappreciated by the British public. Obviously, he had his loss to Ruiz, and I think people forget that in boxing, all it takes is one punch. But on Saturday night, I thought Anthony Joshua was absolutely superb. I know I'll be told I'm biased as a Matchroom fanboy and blah, blah, blah. But I thought AJ was brilliant. I thought he was punch perfect. A lot of people were critical, Adam, of the third round and how he sort of didn't get him out of there. And in the fourth round, took it off the gas. But I think you look at the history of Anthony Joshua, the way that when he did it against Vlad, he came in the sixth round, Vlad clocked him at the end of the fifth and Vlad put him down. We all remember the Dillian White fight when he tried to get him out of there. Dillian White clocked him and rocked him. Same in the Ruiz fight. He put Ruiz down and 20 seconds later Ruiz had spun it on its head. And I think Anthony Joshua has learned you need to win a fight. It's not about this massive knockout in early rounds or whatever. It's a 12-round fight and you can do it at any moment. And I thought he was absolutely clinical and coming back later on, filling up the gas tank, taking that air in, getting himself ready and prepared and knocking out in what was a brutal ninth round finish.
No, I agree as well. It would obviously been, I think he could have taken him out straight after that, but he needs the rounds. He's not been in the ring for over a year. So the more rounds he gets, the better for him. Look at Deontay Wilder. Maybe he'd be more of a better technical boxer if he wasn't so obsessed with trying to knock people out within 2-3 rounds. I think Anthony Joshua, I am normally not his biggest fan, but since the Ruiz round two, I think I really have started to change my opinions of him. I think this is the first time I've seen AJ, and I think he's looking like he's controlling the fight without having to use his fists as much. He's starting to understand the game a bit more with his defensiveness. I think Pulev is a very, very tough fighter. His second time he's been knocked down. I think Klitschko was the only one after that. Yes, I think, fantastic performance from AJ, and I think, big 2021.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't. Obviously, Harv's Tips is now live on Twitter, and I sort of thought I'd give it an alternative commentary on Twitter with the live in play odds, just to have something different because everyone sort of tweets the same nonsense during the fight. But I was really looking forward to the fight in terms of when I like a bit of spice before the fight, and they clearly didn't like each other. Whatever Pulev said to Joshua a couple of days before the fight definitely made it more interesting than I thought it was going to be. And then just before the fight, they were staring each other off. But, you go back to Joshua Ruiz, the first one, where, like, to your point, he tries to gas him out, blow him out, and he ends up getting caught and sat down. And then when he fought Klitschko, he had him on the floor. Then Klitschko had him on the floor. When he fought White, the exact same pattern. And actually, you've praised, obviously, Joshua doing that, but from a neutral fan sort of way, I don't know as much about boxing as you do, Harry. You follow it well, and to be fair, you do have a good insight into the fighting. But yeah, Joshua just looks like he's maturing in the ring. But I remember vividly when Joshua first came on the scene as an undercard, and he were blasting people out within like 40, 30 seconds. And then they go backstage and he's still boxing rounds against pads. So actually really hasn't had that many long fights. And to your point, maybe fighting someone before Fury gives him a better chance. But as a whole, great fight. Great undercard, not. I mean, let me just talk about the undercard quickly. The fight before that was one of the worst fights I have ever seen. I don't know about you,
Was
boys.
that Fury? Was that Huey Fury and?
No, the one after Lawrence Coley versus.
Talking about Coley, yeah. But to be fair, Arv, I mean, Lawrence Coley was supposed to fight Glowacki for a world title fight. They were 1 and 2 in the division, and Glowacki tested positive 4 days ago. So you can't really criticise it.
Pull it off the fight, mate. You're paying good money for. I mean, you don't want to see that.
Absolutely not, because Lawrence Okoli needs to be built. His profile needs to be big. I mean, I think in about March they're going to fight for a world title fight. Lawrence Okoli will become a unified cruiserweight champion of the world, and he'll compete for the heavyweight world title fight within 5 years' time.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. He looked class.
Yeah, but
that's a ridiculous fight.
He needed to get out. He's AJ's sort of number two. Him and Buatsi are AJ's proteges, and obviously, I think I agree that the undercard was poor, but no one's paying rightly. No one's paying to watch any of the undercard. But Okoli looked good. I mean, he's struggled over the last few years, but I think we won't bother touch upon all the undercard. I agree with you. I mean, the Florian Marcoux fight, absolute shambles. Just one of the reasons why I cannot stand the British Boxing Board of Control at the moment. I think the fact that he knocked down his opponent Stewart, and obviously the ref gave it as a draw. I think it was 96-all, which meant he would have had to have lost. He'd only won 3 rounds, including the one that he knocked him down. So 2 of the other 9.
Some scores are shambolic at the minute. You see the BT card last week. There really needs to sort of have a look and sort of. Yeah, I mean, obviously going on a tangent, but some of the scores recently have just been so ridiculous.
No, they absolutely have. But what we'll do is we'll talk about briefly for the biggest fight in British boxing history, and probably since, I mean, they said, I don't know since when. I mean, obviously they've said since sort of all the Rumble in the Jungles and Ali's big fights back then. Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, or Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury. It's absolutely massive. It's a 50-50. The financial split has been agreed, which is great to see. People, obviously, the world of boxing is very complicated, and a lot of fans just think, just get it on, and it isn't quite as simple as that. I mean, there's mandatories and all these things, so just sort of let people understand where the situation is at, for those who might not. Anthony Joshua holds, obviously, the WBO, WBA and IBF belts. Tyson Fury holds the WBC and the Ring Magazine belt. Between them, that will fight for the undisputed fight. I mean, the WBO, who Alexander Usyk is the mandatory for, and it looks like he's going to be called. And I think, Adam, you think that Anthony Joshua would benefit and have more of a chance against the Tyson Fury fight being the one after that if he was to fight Usyk next?
Yeah, I just think because of this new style that he's adapted with his game, I think he did it really well with Ruiz. He was excellent against Pulev. Probably the best person to try against before going up against arguably the best fighter in the world at the moment is probably going up against Usyk to practice that style. And if he gets through Usyk playing with that style and dominating him the way he did with Pulev, then I think there's no reason why AJ could beat Fury. But for now, most people are thinking, yeah, Fury all day, and the majority of people are thinking, yeah, Fury's got that easily. But if AJ can do what the performance he did on Saturday, against Usyk, then there's no reason to believe why he can't do that against Fury.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, Alexander Usyk was the undisputed cruiserweight champion of the world. He fought the likes of Bradis and Michael Hunter, many others, and was phenomenal in what he achieved. Obviously, Tony Bellew, that fight at Manchester Arena, sort of brought him into the limelight in the UK. And he was punch perfect as a cruiserweight at the 200-pound limit and the 14 stone 4. He really shone. Since he's moved up to heavyweight, obviously he had that fight with Washington. It wasn't Washington, was it? Whoever that, it was a big lump in America anyway, sort of a nothing fight. And then fought Chisora just a couple of months ago. He definitely beat Chisora. He was impressive, but he didn't look... For me, there's levels to boxing, and Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are the 2 elite fighters. And I think Usyk's just too small. I love Usyk. I think he's brilliant. What he's brought to boxing, I find him fascinating. I think he's a great entertainer, and he's got a really wicked personality, even though he struggles with the language. I think it'd be a great build-up. But Usyk is probably just, for me, going to be too small for Joshua. It's not your point is very valid in that the style that Fury and Usyk will have is going to be similar, very different in terms of obviously the height, the reach, blah 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 blah. But they're both boxers. They're the best 2 boxers in the heavyweight division. There's no doubt about that. Tyson Fury is a magnificent boxer, and I'd say that Alexander Usyk, pound for pound, is in the top 5 boxers in the world. And it'd be really good to see Joshua go up against it. I don't believe Usyk will hold the power to be able to knock Joshua out, and I'd be shocked if he had the strength to keep Joshua off him, a 17.5 stone man. Usyk's never really felt that pace. I think what will end up happening, though, is that Alexander Usyk and Joe Joyce will fight for the WBO title, and hopefully Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury can get it on. The shame is going to be, though, Harv, that it's very unlikely that fight, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, will land in the UK. You look at the site fees that are being paid around the world, especially coming from the Middle East at the moment, and the sticky situation with the way that the world is in terms of fans. I can't really see any alternative other than a fight landing in the Middle East in April, May, June sort of time.
May is when they're saying tonight.
Is it? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I personally think it'll be in Bahrain. Obviously, Saudi Arabia has held both the Anthony Joshua fight and Tyson Fury fought there in end of last year in the WWE. The guy that doesn't want to show off and build himself into a superstar. And I think he's suing the BBC right now, isn't he, for his thing? So obviously he's not bothered about money either. Is Tyson Fury? He's all these things. He gave all his money to charity at the Wilder fight. Can't forget that. I mean, drives a nice Lamborghini, I think. And
no, he sold it,
you've not
mate.
seen the car yet. He sold his car now. He's driving like a 2005 Passat. Yeah, sold his Rolls Royce. Got it picked up the other day.
People's champion, isn't he?
Yeah,
exactly.
He's my champion, mate. I mean, you give it all that right, but without getting too political, Harold, did Mr. Joshua or did he not attend a rally for equality in the UK?
I mean, yeah, he did, but we're not going down this route.
And did Mr. Joshua fight in a country that has questionable human rights laws and ethics?
He did indeed.
So how on earth can you sit there and call Tyson Fury a hypocrite?
But Tyson Fury also fought in Saudi Arabia, mate.
But he's not the one grandstanding.
I mean, on
the biggest stage. Yeah, but I'm just calling you out, mate. You can't sit there and give Fury all sorts when your man's just as bad, mate. Money talks. The almighty dollar is king in most sports, but to fight in the Middle East, I have no problem against it, because if I was a champion boxer, I'd go where the money is. However, if you want to go down the line of saying Fury's a hypocrite, everyone's a hypocrite in sport if you look at it, because they go where the money is. Sports washing is rife in sports because these countries have questionable whether. Yeah, but I mean, whether you want to get political or not, it is human nature. You go where the money is, but there's a reason why these countries are hosting these sports.
Yeah,
it's
but
not because they're big fans of boxing and they want to grow a legacy of boxing. It's because it's called sports washing, mate. Whether you agree with it or not, but I just don't think that you have a leg to stand on calling Fury a hypocrite, because Fury does just as good in the community as Joshua. But you can't, that's because that's what they're like. They're both good people, in my opinion.
My main point isn't about Tyson Fury being a hypocrite in terms of political and all that stuff. It's just the way that he talks about his boxing, the way that he slams other fighters. I mean, everyone's a dosser in his opinion. You look at Tyson Fury's resume. Has he got the better resume than Anthony Joshua, or CV as we call it in this country? Absolutely not. You look at the likes of Zephyr Sefri, Otto Warlin, Tom Schwartz, Pianetta. These are all the guys that
Schwartz was actually a good. It was, Schwartz would not quite out, mate. Schwartz would give most of these fighters a good run for the money.
I mean, I'm going to clip that up and put that out there, because that is the biggest load of nonsense I have ever heard. And you've talked some shite in your time, but that,
Harry, if Tyson Fury was fighting a 39-year-old Bulgarian man who's the biggest wins against Derek Chisora and Hughie Fury for £25 on a Saturday night, you would be absolutely furious.
Absolutely not. A mandatory is a mandatory, mate. And at the end of the day, Tyson Fury, Pulev is in the top 7 or 8 fighters in the world, without doubt. I mean,
his resume is awful. He's in there because he's won some easy fights along the way. His biggest win is Derek Chisora and Hughie Fury.
Both of whom are better than anyone other than Luis Ortiz that Deontay Wilder has fought. If we go on resumes of each fighter, Deontay Wilder has
Why did Joshua not want to fight Wilder then?
That's not true. It came out, if you look at Twitter the other week, Deontay Wilder came out and said he turned down the money because he wanted to fight Tyson Fury. He didn't want to fight the champion. He wanted to fight some overweight, fat bloke from Morecambe, rather than fighting the world heavyweight champion of the world. And look, he obviously got it wrong, because Tyson Fury smashed into pieces. And I think Tyson Fury is an absolutely brilliant boxer. I think he's an amazing fighter, and he's absolutely fantastic. He's my favourite in the Joshua fight. I just fancy Joshua to knock him out in the first 6.
But Wilder's also, he might be probably not even the top 10 technical boxers, but he is the number 1 most dangerous boxer on the planet. And Fury beat him comfortably both times.
You can't deny it. Wilder's record. If you watch Wilder's highlight reel, there's not a £10 million purse I'd get in the ring with that fella, because look, he almost did Fury, to be fair, like that. It's like Ruiz. That's why heavyweight boxing is the best boxing, in my opinion, because you've always got a puncher's chance. And you cannot jump around the fact that Wilder probably would knock Joshua clean out. If he
Absolute
got
nonsense,
mate, if he connected like he connected to Fury, Joshua would be snoozing on the canvas.
Tyson Fury 2018 was coming off 3 and a bit year layoff, and he literally fought nobodies. He was vastly underweight, and he had such massive ring rust. He wasn't the Tyson Fury that stepped foot in the ring in February 2020. You can't compare them. I mean if that Tyson Fury stepped foot in the ring with Anthony Joshua, he got smashed to pieces. I absolutely believe that Tyson Fury can beat Anthony Joshua. I'm not saying it's a done deal. There are clowns out there who believe that Anthony Joshua has got zero chance of winning this fight. They're totally wrong. Anthony Joshua is a world gold medalist. He's an elite heavyweight. He's one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world. He's top 10 in my records now. Him and Tyson Fury, I think you have to put Tyson Fury ahead of him in terms of 1 and 2 in the division, but those two are comfortably 1 and 2 in the division. They're the elite, and it's going to make a cracking fight. And I think we've touched a lot, obviously, upon those guys. I don't know if you've got any dying words to say, but the number 1 pound for pound fighter is fighting this weekend in Canelo, and I'm happy to move on to that one.
Malik, do you want to lead on the Canelo front? I've not got an opinion on it, believe it or not, because I'm not that bothered.
Yeah, so I think it is going to be a good fight. It wasn't the Canelo fight that I was hoping for this year. I was, like most people, looking forward to him facing Billy Joe Saunders. I think that would be a better matchup and probably a closer fight. But I think to get this fight done towards the end of the year, it's still a really good fight to end the year on. Do I think Callum Smith's going to win? Probably not, especially after the performance against John Ryder. I think he's lucky to even still have his belts. But I don't think Canelo is going to have an easy matchup. I think it's going to probably go the distance, and I do think Callum Smith's probably going to get a couple rounds in there. He's got a long reach. He is a quality fighter, and yeah, I think it's going to be quite a close fight.
Yeah, it's a huge fight. I mean, Canelo's pound for pound #1 in boxing. He's a superstar. You look at sort of the numbers that he generates; they're absolutely massive. I think in this country we underappreciate his talent. He's fought the best. I mean, you look at the likes of Kovalev, Danny Jacobs, Golovkin. Everyone seems to have this thing in boxing that the UFC does better than us, than the boxing world does. Is that the best fight the best, and I think it's a bit of a myth. You look at Canelo, and he is boxing's Conor McGregor. I'm not saying in terms of personality, but in terms of he was the leading light in boxing. He fought Triple G twice, who was definitely his best opponent. Danny Jacobs after that was the best sort of fighter he could fight. He went up 2 weight divisions, fought Kovalev, and now he's fighting Callum Smith, who's the Ring Magazine and number 1 pound for pound, the number 1 fighter in the super middleweight division. I think Canelo steps in there with anyone. He's happy to fight everyone, and Callum Smith is the most dangerous fighter in the super middleweight division. I think Billy Joe Saunders is an easier fight for Canelo. I think Billy Joe Saunders is an excellent boxer. I think he'd step up into the ring, but I just think Canelo has too much boxing IQ and acumen to be able to compete. He's never going to hurt Canelo. You look at the shots that Canelo took from Triple G. He was the most dangerous fighter back in 2016, 2017. Yeah. Canelo is never going to get hurt, in my opinion, from Billy Joe Saunders. But what Callum Smith does have is he's got big knockout power. You look at what he did to George Groves back in the World Boxing Super Series in Jeddah, and it was a phenomenal knockout. You touched upon the John Ryder fight, and I do think Callum Smith won that. It was very close. I think John Ryder was the underdog, and it just sort of made people want to back him more. But I personally think Canelo will win this fight by working the body of Callum Smith. He's a bigger man, massive torso. He's fought so many Brits in the past, and obviously he fought Liam Smith back in 2016, I think, who's obviously Callum's brother. Very different fighters, and that was at light middleweight. This is at super middleweight. And I think the short camp is going to favour Canelo. I just think as someone who understands boxing probably a little bit more, it's very difficult to see how it's going to go, but I would have Canelo winning on a fairly wide point decision, sort of a 9-3, working the body of Callum Smith. I could see him dropping Callum Smith at some point by a body shot, but I would be surprised if he got him out of there like he did Kovalev. But everyone seems to think that Callum Smith's going to be the much bigger man, but we're forgetting that Canelo went up to 175 pounds recently. Yeah. Callum Smith has never done that, and I think he'll struggle to make the weight because he's had such a short camp.
Yeah, I think that was going to be the other worry I had for Callum Smith, was that I think the fight only got announced 5 weeks ago, and I think he wasn't fully. I don't think he was in camp when the fight got announced. So I think that's obviously going to work against Callum Smith as well. And I think Canelo obviously has been training that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a close call, but I don't agree with the Billy Joe Saunders comment. I don't think he has the power to knock him out, but I think technically, I think he could definitely win on points. But then if you're going in a Vegas scorecard, I don't think he has a chance.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, you two, but did Canelo or Triple G did someone have a problem with the WADA?
What drugs?
Yeah, or PEDs or what was it? Tainted meat, the old tainted meat story, or what?
Canelo got a 6-month ban for the same.
Yeah.
For the what's it called? It was the Nalandrin or whatever. Basically, the wild boar sort of thing.
I remember the drug. I just remember reading it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a tiny trace of the same drug that Tyson Fury got banned for as well. No comment.
What does that?
Comment to that one. No, Canelo obviously. There's obviously, yeah, as I say, he was the same drug as Tyson Fury. Both of them have said that they were eating wild boar. For me, I think multi-million-pound boxers eating wild boar. I'm not so sure. Something fishy in the air.
Pallets.
Exactly, something fishy in the air, but. I think it'll be a good fight. It's on DAZN. If you've not got it, £1.99. You should subscribe. Triple G's also. I think it's against Zerameta. I think on the Friday night. And yeah, that'll be a decent fight too. And obviously, coming up in the new year, in what really is a brilliant fight in the lightweight division, is Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell. I mean, I'm super excited for that. It's huge. Ryan Garcia is one of the biggest draws in boxing without even sort of having a big fight. Something like 8 million followers on Instagram. Is he the Justin Bieber of the world? Who knows? We'll wait and see. For me, I think he's the real deal. I really do. But I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, you've enjoyed this boxing podcast. Unless any of you guys have got anything else you'd like to say, predictions maybe for the fight. For me, Canelo on a wide unanimous decision.
Yeah, I'm probably going to go the same, or maybe very late, or maybe round 10 or 11. The only thing I was going to ask is what other fights you were looking forward to in 2021, or you'd like to see happen other than the Ryan Garcia fight, the AJ Fury fight.
Well, obviously, it would have been Buatsi versus Yard. That's now been scuppered. But for me, it's Conor Benn versus Josh Kelly, and I'd love to see that outside in a. I think that's a cracking fight, mate. I'd love to see it in Sunderland Stadium of Light, maybe. Josh Kelly, Conor Benn will bring a big following. Build a decent card up. Maybe get Lewis Ritson on there and sort of a big Northeast card. I think that's a cracking fight. I really do. It would have been Buatsi versus Yard, but that obviously got scuppered. And after that, in terms of British challengers, I think there isn't too many. I'd like to see Billy Joe Saunders in a big fight, maybe Demetrius Andrade over in the States, or get the winner of, if he could get Canelo after, maybe Canelo could be tied to come over to the UK. You look at DAZN. DAZN are really going heavy in a global market now. So obviously the way that they were looking at their American audience is massively changed. Obviously they're now in 200 different countries. I think it's much more likely that you'll see Canelo being brought out to sort of the UK, where they can latch onto both the Australian time zone and also the American time zone, both night and day. It seems much more favourable, sort of getting sort of that GMT time for DAZN. So I think you could see. I've got a sneaky feeling you could see, if crowds allow it, Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders in the UK land, with Eddie Hearn putting it on at a fight in the UK.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, we aren't sponsored by DAZN, despite Harry's best efforts. Something to do with Eddie Hearn and his strange obsession with following him around London. But no, so I mean, just to finish on the boxing. There you go. Look. Did you get that from Harry? The pages stuck together a bit in the middle or something.
Yeah. Look.
No, so I've just halves tips, just having a look at the odds for the fights, just to give you a perspective on what the bookies think. Alvarez is 1-6 on, and you can take Callum Smith at 7-2. I'll be taking Callum Smith on at 7-2, and then you've got Gennady Golovkin, Kamil Stritzamer. Gennady. Sorry, I'm very shit at Russian, believe it or not.
Well, let's not get the right nations wrong, mate.
Sorry.
He's from Kazakhstan.
My apologies. Borat's favourite fighter. He's 1-33 on, and you can back Kamil at 9-1. But I just think that there's no point in backing Kamil.
What's the undercard for the Callum Smith?
I'm not sure, mate. I don't think it's very strong. I think it's Eddie Reynoso's. I think he's got a couple of fighters in there. I think John Ryder's fighting on the Gennady Golovkin undercard. I think, but I think hopefully you've enjoyed this boxing podcast. It's the first boxing special we've done. Obviously touched upon the big fight for 2021, Joshua Fury. Hopefully tune into DAZN, the sponsors of the podcast. And if they want to give me a job, you know where I'm at. We'll
just make sure he's 10 metres away from Eddie Hearn at all times.
10 metres, it's not that big. Love you and leave you.
Yeah, all the best. God bless. That's it.